What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video, and I am super excited to start a new segment I'm going to do. I'm going to try to have on different guests, but I definitely want to work with Spencer a lot, Rover Sports. One of the guys I really respect his opinion. Since I've been on YouTube, he's been one of the nicest guys. He is the nicest guy I've met off of YouTube. And I met him a couple of times. Love this guy. Obviously we've both been busy in our lives, but I'm looking forward to working with Spencer as much as I can this offseason, talking New York Giants, and got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to catch up with. And if you guys haven't done so, please go to the link in the description and subscribe to Rover Sports. He's broad topics, but he's a huge Giants fan. And like I said, we got a lot to talk about. But Rover, first thing I want to ask you, how you been, buddy? And
man.
I know you're excited about this offseason, but what's up, man?
No, I've been good. Life's been luckily, life's been pretty mellow. Still living here in the Bears cave, and life is fine, man. I love when great sports are on, and family and everybody's doing well. So thanks for asking. And it's great. It's great to talk again. And it's great to do these segments. And I really hope we can make this a routine. So, and I've loved the work with your channel. So just thanks for having me on, and can't wait to talk Giants football here and everything.
Can't wait, man. Obviously, this is a huge offseason for the New York Giants. And to me, it's there's so many storylines. You got a completely new coaching staff from top to bottom. They basically got rid of every coach. They kept some of the minor coaches, but overall, everybody's new. Joe Judge is the huge news, the new hire. We got a huge draft coming up. We just got our comp picks today, so that was good. And free agency, we finally have some cap space. Gettleman's back. We've got so much to recap and talk about. I'm not even going to talk about last season because that's done. I knew you were never a huge Pat Shurmer guy since the beginning. You coined the phrase "stale Pat," and so I knew you wanted to move on from him basically as soon as we hired the guy. And
the minute he stepped into the building,
yeah. So
well, listen. Here's the thing about Pat is that and it's funny because my camera's over here, Mike's over here, but I'm gonna keep it going. The thing is with Pat is that I really did give him an honest chance, Chris. I really did. And we joke that during that first year after the Panther game or after the Eagles game was really awful, but then it's like, let's see the system again. And I was really excited actually about last year with Eli Manning. I really was. And then after they beat the Bucs, right? Matt Gay misses those field goals 2-2. But then it was after the Detroit game and after that Cowboys Monday night game, you're just like, does this guy have the fire anymore?
Yeah.
And I think we definitely gave him an opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
He's not a motivator. I think that a lot of Giants fans, I think we saw that he wasn't like this kind of messiah or this Mount Rushmore guy that's going to get us to where we need to go.
Yeah, and his usage of the timeouts and everything else. I think the Giants made the right decision, but what I want to ask you is, Joe Judge, this was a guy that, if we're both being honest, we probably neither one of us heard of him until we started hearing about the potential interviewees. And then Joe Judge came onto the scene, and there was a number of other guys, much more accomplished coaches, Don Wink Martindale, Eric Bieniemy, Matt Rule, a guy that had formerly coached with the New York Giants, a guy that was on both of our radars out of Baylor. He was probably the favorite at the time. It seemed like most New York Giants fans wanted him. And it seems as if we were going to get him. And before we were talking, it was Tuesday. He was going to come in for an interview, and it was a done deal. We all thought he was going to be a New York Giant. And then before he could get there, we find out that he's with Carolina and Joe Judge is the head coach. And we're like, what just happened? And then, tell me what you thought about that when it happened and what you think about Joe Judge right now.
No, at first I was real pissed because Matt's just such a good guy. And even in Carolina, it's hard to hate on Matt Rule. It really is. It's so different, Chris, like what really could have happened. And I think that Matt would have had an opportunity with the Mara family, and the Giants really took it slow. I think McCarthy was so in our future as well. I think it would have been, we would have dragged it on for a while between the three candidates. And the thing is about Matt Rule that you're seeing in Carolina is he's kind of college, he's kumbaya, he's very friendly. Joe Judge, it's completely opposite. Joe Judge isn't even talking about Daniel Jones, and it's really fun because the one thing about Shurmer is that when he lost, the one thing that you can say about Shurmer that you can't say about Ben McAdoo is that he's a good guy. He's a very nice guy. You know, that's one thing. So I like that he gave trust to Eli Manning, that the locker room liked Shurmer. But after those losses, even the Eagles game, I felt like Shurmer wasn't like as upset as I would want him to be. You know what I mean? Like I felt like he was too soft around the players. That won't be a problem with Joe Judge. And this guy Judge he's like a Marine. And even my mom will watch Joe Judge pressers, and we laugh and we laugh. And the one thing about Joe Judge I definitely worry about is, you know, if he was in the NBA or something, or he's around the wrong style of guys, they're going to flat out revolt like Animal Farm. Yeah. You know? You know what I'm saying? Because he's very, very strict. So he kind of has to have his guys, and he's not even giving like Saquon the starting running back position. So a lot of times, you know, I don't know what you could say. Like I could get on my soapbox, talk about millennials, people my age, but he has to get along with today's player. And I think he can do that. But that's going to be a thing with Joe Judge that you have to consider.
Yeah, the one thing, I'm not really worried about that, to be honest with you, because when you hear some of his ex-players, Rob Gronkowski had quotes of saying that, you know, he was a blast, you know, behind he was very relatable to the players. It seems like the players got along with him in New England. And the one thing, at least in my opinion, the reason why you mentioned not naming the starting running back, not naming the starting quarterback, and then we heard all the nonsense about Tom Brady and how that's some possibility by the media. But
or that he doesn't like Daniel Jones already because he wouldn't name him.
Right. But the thing that I think he's trying to instill with the New York Giants is almost family. He doesn't want anybody, both with the coaching staff and the players, right? I mentioned earlier how I love that he brought the entire coaching staff, the janitor, everybody to the NFL Combine because he wanted everybody to have their say. I think it's the same thing with the players. I don't think first off, I think he wants to promote competition. I think competition is good. He wants guys to come in prepared for training camp. Similar to what Shurmer did last year. I remember he didn't name the starting quarterback with Eli and Daniel Jones right away. So I think that's what he wants to do, and he doesn't want to put anybody above anybody else. I actually like that. I like that he's instilling some kind of accountability into the team. But I think the players are going to like him from what I've seen.
And you know what? Jason Garrett is a very kind guy. He's almost like of the Shurmer ilk.
He's always
very
clapping.
Kind.
He's always clapping.
Yes, smiling, clapping. We used to make fun of all these guys, and that's why I love it. You know, I love being hated. I love the league hating us, and if we're great, Joe Judge, you know he's going to be a villain. But having Freddie Kitchens versus Odell this year is another thing. With Freddie
I didn't even think about that. That's a great storyline. What do you overall? What do you think about it? I love the coaching staff overall.
I really do. Like, have you heard of Sean Spence? Have you seen some of the clips of him?
The Penn State, the D-line coach. Yeah,
Yeah. These guys have tons of energy, not a lot of ego. Patrick Graham also is pretty lighthearted. So they're just like, they communicate a lot. And like you said earlier, it's going to be such a versatile plan. And Joe Judge, he's not just an offensive guru or an offensive guy. He's going to be responsible for every part of the team. That's so exciting, isn't it? Like with Shurmer, you felt like he wouldn't even talk to Julian Love or Baker.
Right.
Didn't you feel like there was an island and James Fetcher was just on this other side? And
unfortunately, that's the way it is in the NFL a lot of times now. You almost get a specialist that was great at one specific area. That's what I love. That's another thing I love about Joe Judge. And I didn't even think about it or even realize it because you don't really think about it, you know, as a fan or somebody who covers YouTube until you go through a coaching search. And he got both experience on offense and defense as a special teams coach, and I think that's incredibly valuable. You go and look at Harbaugh. There's an example, but the fact that he is pretty well-versed on both sides of the field, I love the fact that he's coming as a CEO. He's not this quarterback guru. He's a guy that's going to put his input on both offense and defense, special teams everywhere throughout the team, but he's going to let the people that he brought in do their job. And he brought in, I think, a very good balance of guys that are very experienced and guys that are youthful and people that he knows very well. You look throughout this entire coaching staff, he's worked with almost everybody. The running back coach Burns, he coached with at Alabama. I mean, if he hasn't worked with them, Garrett has. Garrett brought in the offensive line coach from Dallas. He brought in a number of other guys from Dallas.
Yeah, and the O-line coach that he was considering, the guy from Miami, I didn't like his background. You know, he was bouncing from one to the next. So.
Yeah.
I'm really happy for Colombo, who's a younger guy, or like the Tennessee, like a guy coming from Tennessee, Brett Bielema, college. He even Joe Judge calls the Giants the program. So it's really like a college football kind of team that's going on in New York with these coaches, and they're truly specialists in their respective areas. It's very creative. The hires are not stale, like retread NFL guys. You know what I'm saying, Chris? And the one thing I'll say about Jason Garrett is a lot of Giants fans might be worried about scheme, but I don't think we're going to be fancy whatsoever. And that kind of matches with Gettleman's MO. We're not going to be running some crazy offensive scheme. We're going to know the scheme really well, and we're going to change a lot from week to week.
Yeah, I'm everything that I've heard. Let's talk about the offense first. But now that you're talking about Garrett, everything that I've heard about Joe Judge, and knowing Gettleman, and knowing Garrett, you go back and look at Dallas. Dallas was a team that they had 3 early first-round draft picks. They built around the offensive line. They built around the run game with Ezekiel Elliott, and they built around the Air Coryell offense, where they threw a lot of vertical passing routes to tall wide receivers. I'm not saying they're going to have that same exact offense, but I do think they're going to have the same principles of a team that's going to look to punch you in the mouth, and they're going to look to hit you with shots down the field when they open up the passing game after they're able to run the ball. Now, to be able to do that, the Giants really have to improve this offensive line, and that is something that's going to be interesting because the fan base seems divided. And I know that both sides need dramatic improvement. We need a lot of help on that offensive line specifically. I'm not too worried about the weapons. I hear about wide receivers. I'm not worried about wide receivers. The offensive line needs to be fixed, but the defense definitely needs to be fixed. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think it's a one-year process. I don't think Rome was built in a day. I think it's going to take 2 years to fix both sides of the football. But it's going to be interesting to see what they target as far as the initial importance, whether it's drafting an offensive lineman early, signing a big-time offensive lineman in free agency, or attacking that defense early and often. But that I do think that their core principle, at least on offense, is going to be able to jam the ball down your throat.
I'm actually ready to see this defensive line start to become elite, like Giants football of the past.
Yeah,
I want a pass rush more than anything, because you have Dexter Lawrence, you have Tomlinson, B.J. Hill's, somewhere in the mix. Then you have the X-Man who could take a leap, and we'll see about Marcus Golden, who he did have a nice year. I'm not in love with Golden because he's a little bit older, but he is fast. He's a great teammate, so it's not like I dislike him.
He might not even be back. He's a free agent. He might not be back.
I love how the 49ers built their team based on, they had 8 defensive linemen that would rotate, they'd have Pro Bowlers coming in, on their defensive front. And that's why Clowney is so interesting, because that's going to dictate the draft, the offseason. And right now, Conklin is very realistic, but I've just felt like with the offensive line, we've been trying to figure it out for so long. I would love to just go defensive line.
Yeah.
And just become Studley on that side of the ball, because offensive line-wise, that's just going to take a long time for us to kind of gel. And then the right side of the offensive line, right, we still have the guy who got hurt from the Vikings last year.
Oh, you talking about Remmers?
Yes, he's
a free agent. They could bring him back, but he's a free agent.
So it's looking like, and then I don't know if the tackle from Kentucky's going to get into play, but I just really want a pass rush that's elite, like an elite pass rusher.
I want both. I want both. And one thing I wanted to talk about before we would get into the draft talk, I meant to talk about were the current players on the roster, more so on the defense, versatility. That's all we've heard from Joe Judge is versatility. The players that are on the current roster, the one guy that jumps off the page to me, I mentioned here earlier, Lorenzo Carter. I think he's an incredibly versatile player, but there's a number of players on this defense that I do think are going to fit what he's trying to do and what Joe Judge and Patrick Graham like. What players, in your opinion, could take the biggest jump, and include Leonard Williams in this because he may be back with the team, may take the biggest jump from last year to this year that are on the Giants roster defensively?
Well, I think Baker's very important, like we were talking about. I just think that Baker will get better coaching from Henderson, the coach from the Falcons. Julian Love, when you think of versatility, you think of Julian. Who else do you think about? You think of a guy at Michigan who used to return punts and who was a jack of all
Yes.
trades.
Peppers. Yes.
Jabril is the ultimate Swiss Army knife of versatility. The Ogletree cutting, it's just a little sad because you see Alec, like if you follow Saquon, you know that Alec is so tight with the guys, like you saw he even went to Europe. So he was a good leader. It's sad that he didn't pan out, and I know on the field it didn't match, but he was a really good leader for us. So that was kind of surprising to see that, but that means that a linebacker could be coming, especially in this draft. They really could be targeting a linebacker, but Jabril I'd say Jabril and Julian are guys that can interchange. So I'll go with those two guys.
Yeah, I love Julian. Those are to me those are the three guys that I could see really taking off. Lorenzo Carter and those two guys. But let's get into the draft. Let's start with free agency because free agency is in a week. I mean, I think we both agree the most pressing needs for the New York Giants: offensive tackle, center, and then on defense, it's basically every position. They could use some help. You mentioned DeAndre Baker. I think Baker could take a big jump. I love the new DB coach with Henderson, especially with his experience with Darrelle Revis, press corner. So hopefully he can get a lot out of Baker, which I think he will. I think Baker's going to take a big leap. I still don't know if I could trust him at least going into the year to be the number one cornerback. So I would like to see the New York Giants potentially address that position in free agency. Bring in a guy, I'm not saying go get Byron Jones, who's going to cost $18 million a year, but bring in somebody with some experience. And there's a number of other areas that they could go, both on offense and defense. What players are you looking at that you would like to see the Giants bring in?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most attractive player, like on the free market, somebody who's a franchise changer. I do ironically think Jones is like somebody who you would covet, but I'm curious to see what you think of Jadeveon Clowney. And see what you think of him.
I'll tell you what. And Byron Jones is interesting in the sense that he is versatile. He's played both safety and corner. He has experience with Garrett. He's an incredible athlete. We both remember the combine he had.
He's highly intelligent. It's just money with him. And of course, Philly would hurt to see him go there because I see him linked to them a lot.
Yeah. But as far as Jadeveon Clowney goes, a lot of my subscribers are kind of torn with him. It seems like nobody's in love with him because they don't see gaudy sack numbers. But as a player, when I watch Jadeveon Clowney play, now you have to worry maybe he's less motivated when he gets his money. He does have a little bit of an injury history, even though I think he's only missed 6 games, if I'm not mistaken, in recent history. But as a football player, when I watch him play, the guy could play. The guy's a difference maker. He's very versatile, too. He's a guy that is great against the run. For his position, one of the best in the league at that. I think he's more than capable of dropping back in coverage with his athletic ability. He doesn't get a lot of sacks, but he gets a ton of quarterback pressures. I don't know if he's worth $22 million, but at the end of the day, none of these players that are thought to be top-tier talents at their positions in free agency are worth the money. And I think another thing that we have to think about as fans, the salary cap is going to go up by 20% next year, according to the new CBA. Right now it's at $200. It's projected to go to $240. Well, Spencer, what happens when it goes to $240? Every football player's salary goes up by 20%. So the Giants may look at Clowney and say, yeah, $22 million is ridiculous, but in a year, Clowney's going to be 26. So that may go into their line of thinking as well. They may be looking at some of these top-tier guys as well. They are overpriced in today's market. By next year's market, they might not be. So Clowney's an interesting name, and of all the prominent pass rushers, he's probably the most obtainable.
And you know what? He is a guy that he would free up Dexter Lawrence for one-on-ones and Dalvin Tomlinson for one-on-ones. And Daniel is not getting paid. And that's so important to bank in on these years when the quarterback is so cheap. And you look at how good Chicago is. You look at Kansas City, the best teams kind of in this league, that they have a lot of cheap quarterbacks. Ryan Tannehill was a cheap quarterback. So, I mean, there wouldn't be a bigger splash than Jadeveon Clowney. And then a lot of people want Kyle Van Noy, and they want to sprinkle around the money with like Conklin and Van Noy. I'm just not sure. We look at Alec Ogletree, who's an older linebacker. Clowney would just be this X factor. He already hates the Eagles, but Clowney's a guy. That's a huge part of it.
Well, if you bring in
Clowney is just the most feared play. I mean, he is so feared. I mean, he can wreck a game in like one play. He has the quickest first step. 4-year deal at 32. He's gone. and then you're going to be – I wouldn't sign him for 6 years. I don't want that because then you worry about like a Hainsworth or – you do worry about it. I would do a 4-year deal. I would really consider it. And, yeah, I mean, the guy wants to win. And by all accounts, he would just be a fantastic fit with our team. But we'll see, how they go.
You mentioned sprinkling around the money with Conklin. You're not sprinkling around if you bring in Conklin. I think Conklin's going to cost $20 million a year for a right tackle. He's going to be – because you look at the tackle market this year, after him, who is there? I mean, you got Bulaga, who's 31 years old. You got Costanzo, who's 32, who the Colts are probably going to keep.
Right, he's good.
Conklin is going to get paid.
This guy talked to Titans fans. He was the best when he was a rookie. Then he's gotten hurt, and he's been inconsistent.
This year he was very good. Second half of the year, he was very good, which had a lot to do with why Derrick Henry got better, and a lot of people attribute that to he was getting back from his injury. He's definitely a risk. I like Conklin because of his age. It's very rare that you see. I don't think we're going to get him, though. That's the thing. Because there's going to be 8 teams trying to bring this guy in. Because how often, Spencer, do you see an offensive lineman of his ilk at his age hit the open market? It almost never happens.
Yeah, and you couple that, I mean, when you're in free agency, you have to worry about the draft. And I think this tackle class is really good. I mean, even the Louisville kid, Becton, he could be around at the end of the first if you want to trade back. So you have to kind of consider that. And so Conklin, you think he's gonna require like $15 million?
More.
Think he's gonna be
18 to 20. I think he's gonna get paid. I think he's gonna get 18 to $20 million a year.
And then Nate is still on the books probably for 2 more years.
I think they cut him after this year. He'd be a $6 million hit after this year. I would. There's a good chance they cut him after this year.
Gettleman, this would be one of the biggest risks for Dave if he goes out and signs Conklin. I mean, after the shoulder, and I just don't know if I'm in love with it. It's got to be a rock solid fit. It really does.
I don't think they're gonna get Conklin. I really don't.
I don't think I'd even like that, to be honest with you. That would just be a ton of money. I'm more in line with the defense. I like Jones and Clowney maybe more than the Conklin.
So if they were to sign Jones and Clowney, you're talking upwards of $40 million of their $60 that they're going to be able to spend. So that's the bulk of your free agency money.
Yeah, but I meant like one of them realistic.
Yeah,
whatever's realistic.
Yeah. So you were talking about hog mollies. You brought up Mekhi Becton. And I want to talk a lot of draft scenarios with you because this is an incredibly interesting draft because you've got, Tua, who knows, right? We're hearing Redskins. We're hearing that the Dolphins could trade up. The Chargers could. We got to wait till his pro day. But as far as the Giants go, they're in a prime position to potentially trade down. They're in a prime position with these hog mollies. You've got a number. I mean, you see the combine that Wirfs had. Tristan Wirfs, I mean, this guy is impressive. A 4.86 40 for a man of his size. Could you imagine his athletic ability being able to get out in front of Saquon Barkley on a screen pass? You've got a number of really impressive offensive linemen. You mentioned Mekhi Becton, imposing force. Obviously, Andrew Thomas, everybody's sleeping on. You've got Jedrick Wills, and then you got a ton of defensive talent. You got everybody's in love with Isaiah Simmons. He's the new flavor of the month.
He's ridiculous. I think he ran faster than Calvin Johnson. I mean, you can't insult his combine. You can't. It's just factual. The guy is a freak. He really is.
He had a better 40 time than Devin Hester. He had a higher vertical leap than Julio Jones. It was something ridiculous. And you look at this, you can't really go wrong. Like, there's so many options if they stay at 4. They could go best offensive lineman available, which I'm curious to get your take on that, who you think the best offensive lineman is for the Giants. You could go Jeff Okudah if the Lions pass on him, poke up that secondary, and you could certainly go Isaiah Simmons, or you could trade down. But let's start with the offensive line. I want both answers. Who do you think is the best fit for the Giants, and who do you think is the best offensive lineman overall? Do you think they're both the same person?
So I'm sorry, I came across a little wishy-washy in the free agency portion. I would go after Clowney as my first priority and then Byron Jones, just to be clear. So those would be the 2 guys that I would probably answer to that question. And then talking about the draft, Simmons, I think Simmons could be very special in the Giants. They do look for versatility. But at the same time, he did play on Clemson. He was on the most elite team. He was playing in ACC competition. I don't know if he's worth that kind of value at 4. I would really love to trade back because of Justin Herbert. I would love it if we could get more assets in this class because The offensive lineman I do like is the guy from Iowa. It's Wirfs. I listen to him. I like his interview. I like, obviously, what I see on the field. The problem is, like, at guard, I mean, we have Zeitler and Hernandez. We're not really going to give that up.
Yeah, so he'd play right tackle, presumably, at least to start. And then Zeitler, if they figure that he's going to be a guard, in a year or two, they'd get rid of Zeitler and then he'd move to guard. But I think he'd start at the right tackle.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I really see the Colts or the Raiders looking at Justin Herbert as a real option.
Let's talk about that. So let's talk about the trade down scenario. So you can see the Colts moving from all the way up from 13 to 4, huh?
I can, because I think that they're really going to love Justin Herbert, and Herbert really had a strong combine, and Jordan Love is. I just think he is a huge risk, actually, more of a risk than Herbert because of Utah State, the interceptions this year. I think teams are going to love Justin Herbert, and they're going to try to move into that position.
I don't get, and I actually like both those quarterbacks. I've been a big fan of Jordan Love for about a couple of weeks now, but I'm also a big fan of Herbert. Herbert has everything you want. He's tall, he's fast, he's got a strong enough arm, he's incredibly intelligent. Herbert's a really interesting prospect, but one thing I've noticed with these mock drafts after the combine, because I'm with you, I'm watching the combine, and Herbert looked near flawless after his first throw. He had a bad throw his first throw, but after that he looked near flawless. The guy has all the attributes you want. I see him dropping in mocks down to 23 sometimes to the New England Patriots. I don't get it. I don't know if they're trying to stir up drama, but I'm with you. I think Herbert's still going to be a hot commodity. I don't know if a team's going to be willing to jump up from 13 to 4, and obviously free agency is going to have a lot to do with this because you've heard Phillip Rivers could go to the Colts. We don't know where these quarterbacks are going to end up, so that'll have a lot to do with it as well. But the trade down scenario with either the Colts or Raiders is incredibly, at least, interesting because if you're able to move down with the Raiders, you get 12, 19, maybe a future third, something like that. If you're moving from 4 to 12, they go and get their quarterback. Now you're in the middle of the draft. You got 12, 19. You're picking at 36. You go anywhere you want there, and you could fill a lot of holes, and you get a future pick. So in that scenario, let's say we move down and we get the 12, 19, and a third-round pick in 2021. What three players are you looking at with those first 3 picks? What areas are you looking at?
I like Caleb Von Chason.
I know you do.
From LSU, because I just think if you listen to you gotta listen to Chase on answer questions. He's so confident. He's a born leader, and he's a pass rusher, but he's capable of playing like against the run. He's fast. He's very versatile for this NFL. He has a lot of speed, and I'd like to get him. And then Kenneth Murray's a guy that's going down in the 20s, and that guy's so physical. He's an old school throwback player that I think is a tremendous linebacker out of Oklahoma. So that would be an incredible scenario. And this draft class, like you said, I mean, you have Andrew Thomas, that's a tackle. You have the Louisville tackle and the Alabama tackle. There's a ton of talent in this draft. How about the Houston guy? I didn't even mention Josh Jones.
Yeah,
Jones is really coveted. So, and then combined with if you wanted to get a wide receiver at 36, you would have.
You got your pick of the litter. You got a T. Higgins could fall there. There's a number of guys that could fall there.
Mims from Baylor is tremendous. Is really doing well. I mean, the guy out of TCU is so fast, and you could give Garrett a weapon. So I just look at 4, and I just think this draft is so deep that I think it would be great to trade back if we could. Even with Carolina, there's still a chance you can get a Simmons at number 7. I mean, do you look at Isaiah Simmons as being that awesome that you're all right with it at 4 unless there's an incredible deal?
I wouldn't be upset with Simmons at 4. To be honest with you, I'm not going to be upset with whoever they take it for as long as it's not Derek Brown. That is the one guy that I worry about, that if they don't bring back Leonard Williams, which I think is possible from what we're reading, and he might be back, but if they don't bring back Leonard Williams, I do think it's possible they could take Derek Brown. Because then Gettleman could say, well, we had to fill the void. Leonard Williams left. I do not want him. That's the one guy. I think he's a good player. I just don't want another interior defensive lineman. Now, I know he could play a little bit on the outside, but that's the one guy I do not want. But if they go Okudah, Simmons, or offensive tackle there, I'm going to be fine with it. Obviously, I want to trade down. I want to get value if we can. But I'd be fine with it. At 7, if we were to trade down at 7, I either want Isaiah Simmons. I don't think Okudah's getting a 7. I either want Isaiah Simmons or I want an offensive tackle. And then, if you take the tackle there's a number of pass rushers you could get in the second round. A guy like Bourne from Wisconsin, very impressive player.
Oh, yeah. That could be like TJ Watt again. You
Yeah.
know, somebody that special.
Yeah.
I wish Epinesa is a guy that I really love, too. I think he's going to be a really solid pro.
Do you think, and I know it's far-fetched, but I did a video on this about 3 or 4 days ago. He's falling down because he had a bad combine. He ran a 5.06. Do you think it's possible he falls down to the back end of the first, early second? Epinesa.
I definitely think it's possible. I mean, when you look at these mocks, the guy sometimes will not even go in a mock draft. And Atlanta's a very favorable spot. He said he loved Vic Beasley, or he loved somebody who played at Iowa. So just the guy's film is very good. And he's very serious. He's exactly kind of what Joe Judge is going to love. He's serious, very mature kid, and Iowa pumps out NFL talent. And this guy I think he is actually pretty athletic. I know the combine didn't go well, but he threw the javelin in high school. He's a multi-sport athlete. Yeah, that would be a dream in the second round. You can never have too many of the edge rushers.
Yeah.
You know, so Epinesa really is a possibility. I disagree with you a little at 4 because it's just Eli Apple, Jeff Okudah, the Ohio. I'm kind of tired of taking corners and offensive linemen.
Oh, I get it.
I would not like a corner because I want to see the pups. I want to see if they have a shot to grow. I mean, you have Baker.
No, I'm with
Julian.
you. I'm with you. Ideally, I'm not going to cry if they bring in Okudah, but ideally, I would like them to bring in that veteran corner in free agency, whether it's Byron Jones, like you said, or I'm not too high on Bradbury, but if you could get even a Chris Harris Jr. on a cheaper deal, he's a little bit up there.
Middle of the road for competition's sakes would be great.
Yeah, but if you get Byron Jones, I'm all for that. Byron Jones, but the thing with Byron Jones, he's going to be $17-18 million a year. That's a lot of money, but he would be a really good fit for the New York Giants because then you don't really have to worry about the cornerback position. You're pretty much set there. Safety, you're pretty much set. You don't really focus too much on the secondary in the draft if you do that, and then you can hone in on the offensive line, the linebackers, the pass rushers, and everything else. And it's just a matter of where you think you're going to get the most value at that point. But they can go a number of ways, and this is such a big draft for the New York Giants and Dave Gettleman because they've got to get it right. You got Saquon Barkley approaching the third year now. You got Daniel Jones on his second. They're going to start to get paid. And I wouldn't even be shocked if they extend Barkley after his third season like the Cowboys did with Zeke. So it's a big offseason for the Giants. They really have to get this thing going in the right direction.
I trust Joe Judge's his I'm sorry for the pun, but his judgment of character.
Yeah.
I really like because he's going to pick serious football players, and I really think it's about developing. Now Becton out of Louisville, I don't really want a project if you're going to stay at 4. You're going to need a rock star. Thomas is going to have to be a rock star offensive lineman for the Giants. But the thing I love about Judge is he's not going to take guys that are distracted. You know, it's a very serious group, and that's why I love this coaching staff so much. I'm not really worried about the character. I think there's no stone unturned with this coaching staff, and that's what's so exciting. But at 4, I mean, this draft, it would really be exciting if the Giants look to trade back. He should really be open to that.
And I think he will be. He said he's open for business. He's never traded down. I'll say this. If they stay at 4, and they go defense, I will say they will go Isaiah Simmons. I think he fits what the New York Giants want to do to a T in terms of versatility, and I could see them going with a tackle. I think they'll either go tackle or Simmons if they stay at 4.
I think Simmons is so special, and just him at the combine, I know he's getting hyped up like crazy, but I would embrace it and be excited to see what happens.
Oh, you and me both, man, and I think most Giant fans will because we want to get back to that dominant defense, and I can't wait to see what happens.
I'll trust the judgment. I said this on my podcast. I don't know if they're going with Simmons because he does have a goofy personality. Like he's a very nice kid. We just never go the conventional route.
Right. Well, we're going to find out soon.
And I just want to know if Simmons is more of a great athlete in college or is he going to be really translate to the NFL and be because I told you this linebacker class, I think Chason and Murray are just as good. So Judge is going to have to see something in Simmons that separates him from the pack.
Well, to me, it's his versatility. I mean, the guy played every position underneath the sun, and he's incredible in coverage. So that, to me, is his biggest and strongest attribute. And in today's NFL, you can make an argument, at least, when you have a player like Simmons that could take away that slot receiver, that tight end, it might even be as valuable as a pass rusher. Because nowadays the quarterbacks are getting the ball out of their hands in 2 seconds anyway. You need to be able to cover those short and intermediate routes. And I think that is what he'd bring to the table.
The RPO and Zach Ertz, and you think about Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz. Even when you look at the Cowboys, I mean, if Zeke leaks out, he can erase so many problems.
Yeah.
It is really nice when you put it that way.
Yeah. But
it's really nice. I mean, not getting hurt. The difference between him and Landon Collins, I mean, would be
night and day. And Peppers, you mentioned earlier, another guy, not as good, but a similar player, a guy that's kind of a jack of all trades. You could do a couple of things with. So I would really like the direction of this Giants defense if they brought in Simmons and maybe a couple of other pieces in the later rounds and free agency.
Yeah, we're not 4-3 at all. There's no 3-4-3. I mean, it's going to change. That's what's going to be so exciting. We're really game planning for the personnel of who we're playing every single week. We're going to scrap it, and you got to be really smart to learn the defense of Patrick.
Yeah, and we're going to be impossible to game plan for if we bring in the right players. It's almost like having a roster for a basketball team where you could line up 4 guards against a specific opponent, then you could bring in a tall lineup based on your opponent. So I like that mentality by our new head coach, Joe Judge, not being predictable. But I can't wait to see how it all turns out. Obviously, free agency's this week. And I can't wait to have you back on the channel to talk about that. Hopefully we go live for that because that's going to set us up for the draft. After we sign all these players, we're going to know at least if they don't sign any big offensive linemen, I think it's a strong possibility we're going with a tackle early in the first round. So it's going to give us a lot of hints as to what we're going to do in the draft and the future of this football team. But I can't wait to see how it all turns out. I know you can't either.
Yeah, I can't. I love watching the entire league, and I mean, it's slated for. Is it slated for next Tuesday? Because it always gets leaked. So when is it really slated for, and when is it realistically going to happen? What day is it realistically going to happen?
Yeah, Monday the 16th. So I'm assuming it's like the 15th at midnight. I think you could start talking to people. And then the 18th is technically the first day you could sign people. But last year, I think it was the day before, even 2 days before, sometimes you found out some of the information. Of course, the Jets lost Barr when he came out because nobody wants to play for the Jets. I'm just kidding. But
or no, you're not.
But I can't wait to see how it all turns out. It's going to be a great offseason. This has already been going on for 37 minutes because we could talk for 3 hours if we wanted to. But I just want to
circle back and forth and. I remember, man, a late night chat, and you're like, this Daniel Jones kid could be Peyton Manning. I remember that talk, man.
Okay. I said that on a stream, and obviously we were known for completely different Daniel Jones reactions. You were, it's all Gucci. I was upset on draft night. I'll be the first to admit it. But
I just love being against the job. I don't know what it is. I like being on the island, so I was fine. But
in fairness to me, like you said, we had a conversation a month before the draft. We were on the phone together. We were watching Daniel Jones's film, and I said, this guy's good. I just wasn't in love with picking him at 7, but I was a fan of Daniel Jones. You could attest to that.
And listen, Josh Allen was a complete stud, and he really was, And this season, there were points where Jones would fumble a lot, and it's just – I think it was just such a rocky time with Shurmer and not have – it was such an emotional time too, Chris, because we love Eli Manning. It was so sad. It's such an important decision, the quarterback. So it was so contentious with the fan base, but I think everything is fine now, and – it's a much smoother offseason than last offseason was crazy.
Oh, yeah, and that's one thing we didn't even get to talk about was Daniel Jones, but we could talk about him for hours as well.
Yeah, we got to save something for the next time, man.
We got to save something for the next time, but I had such a blast having you on, and I can't wait to have you on again, man. You did a great job, and once again, if you guys have stuck around for the full 38 minutes and 32 seconds, go into the description and subscribe to Rover Sports. I want to say thank you for coming on the channel, and I'm looking forward to talking to you next week, buddy.
Man, had a blast. Thanks so much.
You got it, man.